We're continuing our conversation with Daniel Ellsberg, Pentagon Papers whistleblower, and Ralph Nader, longtime consumer advocate. Dan Ellsberg, your decision to participate in the protests this weekend of the 8th anniversary of the Iraq invasion and to participate in civil disobedience, why are you doing it?
Well, actions of this sort, of course, changed my life. If it weren't for people who had chosen to go to jail rather than to go to Canada or Sweden or the National Guard to protest the Vietnam War, really impressed me with the question, am I doing enough? What more can I do to help end this Vietnam War, which I felt as strongly about as they did? And very specifically, what could I do to end it if I were willing to risk prison, which I did by taking actions of truth-telling of the same sort that Bradley Manning is charged with right now and is sitting in jail right now for Quantico. By the way, the action is not only on the 19th at the White House, but there will be a march to Quantico in support of Bradley Manning on the 20th, and people can get all the information on where and when and how to join in these by looking at the website Stop These Wars, one word, stopthesewars.org. They have all the timing on that. I'll be at both of those events. As of now, one of the parts of the Quantico event is to, especially for those of us who are vets, I was in the Marine Corps. In fact, I spent 9 months at Quantico myself in basic school. Plan to lay some flowers in recognition of American war dead on the Iwo Jima Memorial at the entrance to Quantico. And as of now, we're being told that that will be forbidden. That's a public park that is normally open 7 days a week, but on this particular Sunday, we're not going to be allowed to do that. I think we will challenge that if that absurd condition remains.
And then you've expressed not only concern about Bradley Manning, but also about the safety of Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks founder. Could you give us your sense of the latest in the developments of Assange's case?
Well, as of now, he's appealing a decision to extradite him to Sweden with the rather clear subtext here that the U.S. hopes or might find it easier even to extradite him from Sweden with its current relatively right-wing government than from England, which has stronger restrictions on extraditing for political motives. He is concerned about that. I think earlier I expressed the fear that before these legal proceedings started that he could be subject to the kind of special forces operation that the WikiLeaks revelations showed that we're doing on a very wide scale in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now it turns out in Pakistan that one of the major revelations of WikiLeaks that I found from the Afghan war logs was that we are already doing offensive ground operations of a special forces nature in Pakistan, which seems to be one of the most dangerous possible operations we could be doing, since it might destabilize the government there and lead to a government in which nuclear weapons were in the hands of allies, literal allies of Al-Qaeda and of the Taliban. So an extremely reckless operation by the U.S. government, and one, so far as we know, without a new war against another country, a so-called ally, without the authorization of Congress, so far as we know.
And Ralph Nader, I'd like to ask you about a completely different topic, the continuing assault on labor unions and on public employees across the country. Obviously, the huge public uprising, in essence, in Wisconsin against the new draconian legislation passed there, but also in other states throughout the Midwest. Your assessment of this new assault on the public employee unions?
Well, it's a very concerted one, not only by governors, but by the Republican Party in particular, and the corporatists that run it. The idea is, after the Wall Street collapse drove us into a deep recession, which reduced tax revenues everywhere, especially with the Republican insistence that the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy be continued, It was the stage for saying, well, there are a lot of deficits in the state government in Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio and elsewhere. Therefore, they have to go after the public employee unions, not only to make them concede on their salaries and benefits, X percentages, but also to break their human right to collectively bargain. And let's not be fuzzy about this. The right of collective bargaining is part of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Whenever we analyze the level of democracy in other countries, one of the signal yardsticks is, are the workers able to form independent labor unions? They are not in Mexico. They are not in China. They are not in many other countries that U.S. corporations are shipping jobs in entire industries to day by day. So the response has been unexpected but necessary. There are 100,000 people rallying last Saturday in Madison. There are other rallies in other states. The question is whether the AFL-CIO is going to put money and whether the United Auto Workers and others who have a lot of money in their strike fund reserves into mobilizing workers, union and non-union, all over the country, into a major political movement that refuses to go for the least worst between Republican and Democrat, and it demands that Obama fulfill his campaign pledge in 2008 to raise the minimum wage to $9.50. It's now $7.25, and also to push openly and transformingly for the card check and for repeal of Taft-Hartley so workers can have the same rights to organize as they do in Western Europe and Canada. So I hope this will continue. The issue we're all wondering about is, do these rallies have stamina? Will they replicate themselves throughout the country? Will they be supported with full-time organizers? And that's up to Richard Trumka of the AFL-CIO, who's been far too congenial with President Obama, and he's got to stand firm, as he knows how to, and get his member unions to put more resources into these drives.
And Ralph, a particular target of the Republican efforts have been these public employee pensions. They keep claiming in many states, not just in the Midwest, that local governments can no longer afford providing pensions, especially at the level of benefits that some of the pensions systems have for these veteran government workers. Your response?
Well, many of these pensions are funded. Others have gaps in their funding. There are a few abuses, Juan, in some of these areas. Early retirement, full pensions, age 50, for example. But by and large, public employee unions represent the kind of middle-class standard of living that most Americans aspire to. And they negotiated these, obviously, but what's important to remember is, how can they say that the public employees' claim on the Treasury has to be cut back, firefighters, police, teachers, civil servants, when there is hundreds of billions of dollars of corporate welfare in these states, tax abatements in New York City, for example, subsidies, handouts, giveaways. I mean, it's insinuated into the structure of state, local, and national government. And those are the ones that should go first. Corporate welfare should go first before you start cutting back on people's standard of living. And the governor of Wisconsin, he had current year $137 million deficit. It's pretty small by other states. And he provided $140 million in corporate tax welfare for starters, added on to all the other corporate welfare systems in Wisconsin. So we've got the thing turned around. Workers take the brunt, but not these corporate supremacists, not these corporate freeloaders that we have to guarantee and support, just like nuclear power has to be guaranteed by the taxpayer because Wall Street won't finance them. So we have to get over this idea of making the least powerful pay the price for the corporate criminality that started in the latest stage from the Wall Street crooks and speculators who looted and drained trillions of dollars of pension funds and mutual fund savings while they enriched themselves tanked their companies, their banks, and sent them to Washington to be bailed out by the same workers in their role as taxpayers. It's really time to raise our level of informed indignation, break our routine, and get involved as voters and citizens at the local, state, and national level.